What's up, guys? It's Tony from Streetball Strategies, where we use strategy to build your streetball legacy. Today we're talking about playing accidental basketball. What is accidental basketball, you ask? Well, it's anytime you're on the court and you don't really have a purpose beyond the general purposes of trying to get better or trying to win. So let's say you're out here by yourself and say you're shooting around. You're just trying to get some shots up, you're just trying to get a sweat going, and you're just trying to get some court time in. That is playing accidental basketball, because you don't really have a purpose or a reason to be out here other than the general sort of idea of trying to get better and spend some court time. Or let's say you're actually playing a game, and within the game you're just trying to have a good time, you're just trying to play some good ball and hopefully get a win. The idea of just being out here and trying to have a good time and get better and maybe win, those are such general ideas that they don't really afford you the ability to get better while you're doing it. And thus that is the start of playing basketball on accident. And while there can be some small value in shooting around by yourself or just sort of being in a game and playing for fun and the general idea of getting better and maybe trying to win, I say it's more detrimental to your streetball career because it starts the process of playing accidental basketball, and we want to try to avoid that as much as possible because the time that we spend on the courts is more precious than you probably realize, especially if you're just starting out your career. And how you use that time is very important. And if you're playing accidental basketball, there is 3 main problems that I see with doing that. Problem number 1 is that anytime you're out here, anytime you're on a streetball court, we've talked about this before, which is it puts wear and tear on your body. Even if you're just shooting around by yourself. When you're doing so from time to time, say once or twice a week, maybe it's not so bad, but it's the cumulative effect of doing it over and over again, of playing accidental basketball over and over again, of being out here without a purpose or a reason, and you're just trying to have the general idea of getting better or trying to have some fun. That's fine, but you have to realize and be aware that when you're doing that, when you're out here, you're putting wear and tear on your body. And so if you're going to subject your body to that wear and tear, at least have a reason for doing so, right? Shooting around by yourself once a week, that's fine, but over a streetball career of doing that multiple times a week, you're going to build up a mass of wear and tear on your joints, and if you're not really out here with a purpose while doing that, you're kind of wasting your time and you're putting wear and tear on your body for no reason. The second problem is that anytime you're out here and you're spending time without reason or focus, you're taking time away from the active process of building your legacy. So anytime you're out here just shooting by yourself, or you're just sort of trying to have fun playing some games, that's fine, but you have to be aware that that time that you're spending doing that is taking away from your legacy building time. And again, anytime we're out here, we want to utilize the time that we have because of the fact that it puts wear and tear on our bodies, and that who knows how long or short your streetball career may be. You want to use that time as efficiently as possible. You don't want to waste it with just mindlessly running up and down the court. The third problem comes in when other people are out here, whether you're shooting around with other people or you're playing games. When you're just operating under the idea that you're just trying to have fun and you're trying to play some good ball and you're just trying to get a win, when your objective is so vague like that, you kind of find yourself kind of being hypnotized just by sort of the flow of the game that gets set. So whether you're playing a game or you're shooting around with other people, the idea is, say you're out here with your friends. You know everybody knows you, you're friends, you all get along, you love spending time together on the court, and you're out here and you're just trying to have fun with each other. Competing and winning is not really something that's at the forefront of your mind. It's sort of on the back burner because you're just trying to have fun with your friends and spend time with them. That's all good, right? Here's the problem with that. When a situation like that occurs and you're not really trying to have the idea of what am I trying to accomplish on this day or this game or this shoot around session or whatever it is, when you don't have a goal or a purpose in mind, what happens is, whether you're shooting around or whether you're playing in a game, and especially if everybody else on the court has that same kind of mentality, whether or not you realize it or they realize it, a flow and a tone is going to be set, whether they intend it or you intend it to happen or not. A flow is going to happen. So say you're playing a game and you're out here with your friends and you're just having a good time, and one of your friends just sort of happens to be hot when they start the game. They have a hot shooting hand. So the game starts, and whether they're on your team or not, you guys start to shoot, the game starts, and whoever it is, they are shooting well that game. They're having a good game, they're shooting the ball well, they're doing the majority of the scoring, and so everybody else on the court sort of falls in the flow of that game and that hot shooter. And he didn't intend it to start the game hot, it just sort of happened that way. And so now you guys are playing within that shooter's flow and his tone that he's setting, and he doesn't even mean to be setting it. It just sort of happens that way because he's not trying to be a good shooter that game. It just sort of happened that way because no one on the court had intentions of, okay, I'm going to shoot really well this game. I'm going to have a high percentage shooting game. It just sort of, the game started, and that's the way the game started to play out. The problem with that is that now you're playing within someone else's flow, someone else's tone. A big contributing idea to building your legacy out here is that, to a degree, you are in control, right? You have a certain amount of control of how your offense performs and what they do. You have a certain amount of control of how your team plays defense and how hard they rebound. And if you have to set the tone in order for that to happen, then that's what you do, right? But when you're in a situation where you're just trying to have fun and hopefully get a win, you have no control, right? You have no game plan. There's nothing set in your mind of, this is what I'm trying to accomplish this game in terms of anything specific. So especially when there's a situation of someone else setting the tone or setting the pace, or someone else having a game plan that you then fall in line with, especially if they're an opponent, that is detrimental to building your legacy. That's kind of the opposite. Like, you are now a proponent of that person and now building their legacy and using you to do so. And when you fall into the hypnosis of playing accidental basketball, you're not really building your legacy anymore. You're kind of doing the opposite, which is sort of falling into someone else's legacy, helping them build their legacy instead of you building yours. So how do we avoid playing accidental basketball? Let's attack this from a few angles, right? So number one, if you're out here by yourself and you're just shooting around, the way you can sort of avoid falling into shooting around and sort of wasting your time doing that, have a purpose, have an objective, something you're trying to do, something you're trying to improve on. Don't just sort of come out here for the sake of getting some shots up and getting some sweat going and having some court time under your belt. That's not really helping you at all. There are benefits to doing that. They're very ancillary. Maybe I'll cover them in future videos, but for the most part, it's a waste of your time. We've talked in the past about how practicing by yourself can help you expose your own weaknesses, and you can then work on them without having your opponents see what your weaknesses are and then them using them against you. So when you're out here, make sure you have a reason and a purpose for doing so, and then go after it hard. Use this time by yourself to make the strengths that you already have stronger, and to either eliminate your weaknesses or turn your weaknesses into strengths. Now let's talk about being out here with your friends playing games, right? If you're out here with your friends and you're playing games with them and you're just trying to have fun and spend some time with them and have a good time. In a case like that where competition isn't really what you're focusing on, winning isn't really the main focus, you're just trying to have fun with your friends. I get that, and that's awesome, and I encourage that. But you have to be aware if that's what you're doing. When you're doing that, at least be aware that while you're in that situation, you are going to run into the problems that I listed before about how it's fatiguing your body and it's kind of wasting your legacy's time, and how you're sort of being a part of someone else's flow and maybe helping someone else build their legacy. At least be aware that that's what's happening. And if that's something that you want to avoid, there's ways to build your legacy while still having fun with your friends. It doesn't always have to be about sort of dominating your competition and driving them to the ground and into submission and establishing your dominance, right? Because if you try to do that, and especially if you're at a stage where you can do that, and maybe your friends aren't at that stage themselves, maybe they don't take ball as seriously as you do, if you impose your will on them and take away the fun, right, they're not going to want to play with you, because it's not fun to step out on the court with your friends just to have them dominate you every time. So there's ways to work on your legacy while still having fun with your friends and not taking the fun out of the games. One of the ways to go about doing that is sort of to try to work on special skills within the process of playing with your friends and having fun. So it can be anything, and it can change from day to day or game to game or whatever you choose to do. For instance, maybe you want to be a go-to three-point shooter. So you want to establish yourself as a good go-to three-point shooter, so that when your friends are picking teams, when they think of you, they will think of you as a good three-point shooter, and if that's what they're looking for, they will thus then choose you, and that'll be like one of the first things they think about when they're sort of trying to choose teams. And you can do that with any skill. You can do that with being a hard-nosed rebounder or a defensive stopper, or maybe something as simple as being like a trick shot maker. You know, maybe you want to sort of set the precedence that you're a crazy shot maker, that you can make crazy layups from any angle on the court, or you can make three-pointers from crazy deep distance, or something like that. Something as simple as being a crazy trick shot maker. You can set that as your precedence as well, and you can do that within the framework of playing with your friends and still having fun without sort of dominating them and driving them to the ground so that you can win and establish your dominance and your legacy against them. And you can do things and have fun and set skills and work on things to further your legacy without losing the fun of playing with your friends. So when you're playing with your friends, at least have a reason that you're out here. Have something that you're trying to establish with them that tells them, okay, this is the kind of player I am, and this is what you get when you play with me. And by having me on your team, we're still going to win, we're going to compete, and it's still going to be fun. Now, most importantly, for building your legacy, when you're playing with strangers, this is where your legacy, building it, forming it, really comes into play. Because your friends are your friends, and they're going to like you, and they're going to be your friends regardless. And so you're going to have a certain kind of legacy with them anyway, because you're friends with them. But for strangers, it becomes even more important to have a reason and a purpose and to avoid playing accidental basketball. Your first impression upon those strangers is very important. You need to get the message across to them that you are a serious basketball player, and that when you're out here, you mean business, and your business is trying to win. Because the ultimate overall sort of legacy that we're trying to establish is that when people play with you, they win, and when people play against you, they lose. That's sort of the ultimate overall overarching legacy that we're trying to build. And if a stranger comes up to you and wants to play, and you end up playing accidental basketball where you don't really have a reason or a purpose, or you're just trying to have fun and maybe you're trying to get to know them, you're not establishing your legacy. You're not establishing who you are to that stranger. It's important that they know and that they understand that you are a serious player and that you mean business. It's important that you set the stage for competitiveness with strangers as soon and as early as possible. If you can, assert your dominance or at least assert your intentions upon them of you're a serious player and you're trying to win. But what happens if you're not at a stage in your career yet where you can assert your dominance upon them, or you can't just sort of impose your will of competitiveness and winning against strangers? So maybe you're not a great shooter yet. Maybe you're not a great dribbler. Maybe you're not a great passer. Maybe you're still working on even fundamental skills out here. That doesn't mean that you can't impose your will upon your opponents. It just means you can't do it from a skills and ability and experience standpoint. But what you can always do is bring effort, physical effort. And that's not as fun, right? It's not as fun as just hitting any pull-up jumper you want to anytime and thus sort of controlling the offensive end of the basketball court. It's not as fun to chase down rebounds and loose balls and stuff like that, but it's necessary. At the beginning, it's necessary for you to out-hustle everybody. That's how you let them know that you mean business. Because if you're willing to sprint after loose balls when running would be fine, like if there's a loose ball and you can get to it, and if you run to the ball, you can get it, but instead of running, you sprint, that sort of sets the precedence of you mean business and that you're going to work hard out here to accomplish what you're trying to achieve. You're trying to win, you're trying to earn your spot, you're trying to learn and get better. And if you set the example physically to your opponents that you are going to work hard, you're going to try hard, you're going to do the very best you can effort-wise in order to win and get better, setting that example to them is very important. Because when it comes to picking teammates out here, if you're picking teams and you're trying to decide who's going to be on your team, in situations where you don't know the players, or if I'm picking a team and I don't know the players, but I've seen players out here who are workhorses, hustlers, who are trying their hardest to win the game, even though they don't really have the skills yet to contribute from a ability standpoint, but they run hard, they box out, they go after loose balls. That sends the message to me that they want to win, they're trying to win, and they will do everything within their physical ability to do that. It's very important, and it's underrated, and you should not take it for granted. So try to keep that in mind when you're out here, that you need to have a game plan every time you step on the court. You need to have a reason that you're out here, a focus, an objective, something that you're trying to achieve. The question is, are you a follower or are you a leader? Are you out here trying to accomplish something, or are you out here just spending time? If you fall into the trap of playing accidental basketball, that's how you end up being just another player. You should constantly, consciously be trying to establish the kind of player that you are out here on the court. You can do that by yourself. You can definitely do that with competition. You should be trying to establish why people should want to play with you, and even trying to establish why people should fear playing against you. What is it that you bring to the court? Why should people want to be on your team? Why should people not want you to be their competition? These are things that you should constantly be trying to accomplish and establish out here. What is it that you bring to the court that no one else out here does? What is it that you do better than everyone else does? And even if that's effort and energy and hustle, that's fine. That's what you do at the beginning. As your career moves along and expands, then that's when the abilities and the skills and the experience come into play. Whatever it is that you sort of choose as your bat signal of, oh, here comes this player, he does this really well, I want that on my team. Make sure that you develop that and you bring that to the court, and that it becomes sort of a signature of your game and your presence out here. That's how you build a legacy, not by playing accidental basketball where you fall into someone else's flow, right? It's up to you to distinguish who you are on the court and then use that in order to control and set your own flow. Don't let yourself fall into the trap and the hypnosis of just trying to get better or just trying to maybe get a win. Set the precedence for why people should want to choose you, why they should want to have you on your team. And by doing that over and over again over time, that's how you build your legacy. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you really do value the time that you're putting in out here. You don't really have the luxury to waste it playing accidental basketball. Utilize the time that you have a game plan, have a reason and a focus for what you're doing out here, and make sure you're having fun too. I mean, building your legacy should be fun. It's not all hard work and running yourself into the ground and competing all out all the time. You should be having fun while you're doing that. If you guys like these ideas, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. New videos coming every Wednesday that cover all kinds of subjects that have to do with the philosophy of streetball and how to set up your game strategically. And if you found this video helpful, please go ahead and hit that like button and hit the notification bell as well so that you can be notified when future videos come out. Again, thank you guys, and I will see you guys next week.
And I'm in rare form like Jordan Airborne. I'm here, there, and gone, low key as baritone.